The rose in my hand dropped to the ground. My fiancée, Isabella, wearing a wedding dress, was lying on the bed with another man. Tomorrow was supposed to be our wedding day. I smiled bitterly and said, "Do you know this is our bridal chamber?" Isabella said nonchalantly, "Since we're seeking excitement, we should carry it through to the end. Anyway, what can you do? Even if you found out, you're just a dog kept by my father. Do you dare to divorce me?" I shook my head and turned to leave. She sneered and cursed me as a loser. When I closed the door, the sound of heavy breathing came from inside the room. Over the years, I had been working under her father and had been promoted step by step. Isabella thought she had me in her grasp. However, what she didn't know was that her father had become demented half a year ago. I had wolfish ambitions and seized all the power. With just one word from me, her family would go bankrupt immediately. I made 2 phone calls. One was to inform all my relatives and friends that they didn't need to come to the wedding tomorrow. The other was to tell my secretary to convey to all the shareholders that from that day on, I would no longer protect the Isabella family. The shareholders acted quickly. When I came downstairs, I saw Isabella's driver hurrying over. He bowed deeply to me, then got into the Porsche and drove away. This car and the driver were both gifts from other shareholders to please her father back then. Now, Isabella was worthless in their eyes. This woman was still upstairs having a wild time. Yet she didn't know that starting from now, let alone a Porsche, she couldn't even afford to take the subway. Even this bridal chamber was nominally given to Isabella by a developer who wanted to make friends with me when he heard that we were getting married. As soon as I got into my car, I saw a group of people from the property management hurrying upstairs. This 300 square meter riverside apartment was no longer a place where Isabella could live. Soon, she, with her clothes in disarray, was dragged down by the property security guards. She shouted anxiously, "Don't touch me randomly. What do you want? Do you know who my father is?" Her father, after I seized the power, was nothing. Isabella saw me in the car. She broke free from the security guards and rushed over to pound on my car window, shouting angrily, "William, what tricks are you playing? I'll go and complain to my father right away and make you lose everything." This woman still didn't understand that it was she who had nothing. The man beside her said to me anxiously, "William, Isabella and I are sorry for what happened this time, but you can't drive her out of her home. Even crows know how to repay their parents' kindness. Don't forget how her father promoted you over the years." I glanced at that man. I knew him. He was Lucas, Isabella's first love when she was at school. Isabella had truly loved him for many years. I had always known that when Lucas got the opportunity to study abroad, Isabella gave her virginity to him that night she got pregnant, and even went to have an abortion, crying that she had lost his child. Once, I had worked hard for the Isabella family without complaint. Now, I only had my eyes on this family business. I said faintly to the driver, "Drive." The scene outside the car started to recede. Isabella pounded on my car window like crazy and yelled at me hysterically, "William, at the shareholders' meeting the day after tomorrow, I'll clean house and drive you, this ungrateful wretch, out of the Isabella family." An ungrateful wretch. I smiled. Over the years, people all thought that Isabella's father was promoting me. However, people forgot that back then, he started his business by smuggling and was even found to have evaded taxes. It was my loyal father who took all the blame. Perhaps he felt indebted and took me in as his adopted son. On the first day when I entered the Isabella family, Isabella said to me arrogantly, "They said your father was a dog beside my father. Then from today on, you're my dog." That day, Isabella's father laughed heartily and told me not to take a child's words to heart. From that day on, I lived for the Isabella family. In front of my classmates, Isabella directly called me a puppy, asking me to carry her school bag and do her homework. If I didn't obey a little bit, she would be so anxious that she would say in front of all my classmates, "You're a bastard without a father. If it weren't for my father raising you, you would have starved to death long ago, and you don't even know how to be grateful." When I wore new clothes during the spring festival, she would also go around proclaiming that the clothes on me were bought by her father, and the lucky money was given by her father. Since I was a child, I had been that loyal dog. When I grew up, I entered the Isabella group and had a meteoric rise. But every step of mine was stained with invisible blood as I eliminated every enemy who was unfavorable to Isabella. For her father, I had built a throne just waiting for Isabella to come and take it. She had been indulging in eating, drinking, and having fun all these years, allowing me to pave the way for her. When she had had enough fun, she could directly take the top position. Come to think of it, it was lucky that she was only focused on having fun and didn't even care about her own father. Otherwise, how could I have obtained this huge family business? The next day, Isabella came, and she brought Lucas with her. She directed and pushed open the door of my office and cursed angrily, "Well, William, you really dare to cancel the wedding." I glanced at her and said calmly, "What's the matter? Where's my father? All my cards have been frozen. The fare for coming here was paid by brother Lucas. I said casually. The chairman is discussing business in another province. In fact, there was no way he was discussing business. He had even forgotten who he was and had long been arranged by me to be in a nursing home abroad. Isabella looked into my eyes and suddenly laughed. I originally planned to kick you out at tomorrow's shareholders meeting, but I just can't stand your face. The more I look at it, the more disgusting it is. Don't sit in this position pretending to be decent. Get out of the way. She took out a document and slapped it in front of me. I picked it up and took a look. It was a personnel appointment letter. Mr. Lucas is hired as the assistant to the general manager of our company. Once Mr. Lucas returns to the country, he will take office directly. The signature on it was that of Isabella's father, and the time was exactly half a year ago. Starting directly as the assistant to the general manager. He's clearly aiming for my position and even wants me to teach him everything. Sure enough, Isabella's father had always just regarded me as a dog of the Isabella family. Isabella sneered and said, "I'm telling you, you can wear this suit for at most 3 more months. This chair of yours belongs to Brother Lucas." Lucas said hypocritically, "I'm sorry." Isabella said the company was very busy and hoped that I could come to help. I didn't know it would be like this. I nodded and extended my hand to him. "Welcome to the company." Lucas shook hands with me, a victorious smile all over his face. I withdrew my hand and said, "However, you stepped into the office with your left foot first just now, which is bad for the company's image. Go to the Human Resources Department to handle your resignation." Lucas's smile gradually froze. Isabella's eyes widened. "How dare you? How dare you fire Brother Lucas?" I sat in the chair, flipping through the documents, and said calmly, "Is there a problem with me firing my assistant?" Lucas was still pretending. He smiled bitterly and said, "William, shut up. Are you allowed to call me William?" "All right, William. I understand that you're angry with me, but this is an appointment made by Isabella's father. If you fire me directly now, I'm afraid you'll look bad at tomorrow's shareholders meeting." Well, I took out my mobile phone, turned on the camera, looked at my face, and then said seriously, "I think I look good. The most charming parts are my chin and the fullness under my eyes." He was dumbstruck and stared in astonishment. Isabella was so angry that she pushed all the documents on my desk to the ground and cursed angrily. "William, do you really think you're the general manager of my family's company? To tell you the truth, when I started dating and getting married to you back then, it was just that my father saw that you had cultivated a group of elites and wanted to win people's hearts first. Now that the company is on the right track, we don't need you anymore." I nodded. "I had known this all along." She continued to sneer, "You're going to become a pauper soon. Otherwise, why do you think I asked you to sign the prenuptial property agreement? Whether we get married or divorced, our properties are separate. Poor someone, you won't even be able to afford a bowl of ramen." Then, hearing this, I burst out laughing. Nuptial property agreement. How dare you laugh? Isabella still wanted to lose her temper, but I just stood up and straightened my tie. "Sorry, I have a meeting to attend." "I won't keep you company, Lucas," sighed William. "I know you still can't accept it in your heart. Then I'll come to take the position tomorrow. Don't worry, you're a talent. 3 months later, when I become the general manager, I'll also arrange for you to assist me." I couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him and just turned around and left. I made a phone call to my secretary. After the call was connected, I asked, "How's it going?" The secretary said respectfully, "From tomorrow on, there will be no more Isabella family. We'll arrange a car for tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, the shareholders meeting will be held in the morning." "Where are you going?" "To the prison to pick someone up." At the prison entrance, I sat in the Maybach looking at the planning book for tomorrow. As the prison gate opened, my father, carrying a bag and dressed simply, walked out. The secretary quickly went to carry his bag for him, and he came to my side, touched the car door, and said with emotion, "President Isabella is so kind. She even lets you ride in such an expensive car." I said calmly, "Get in the car." He got into the car, a bit awkwardly, and couldn't help wiping the seat. "I'm dirty. Don't dirty President Isabella's car." "Son, I'm really relieved to leave you in the care of President Isabella. Look how handsome you've become under his care." "Under his care," I sneered. In junior high school, Isabella forced me to wash her feet and even drink the water she washed her feet with just to show off in front of her classmates that she had a servant. When I refused to drink it, she slapped me 3 times in public. After her father found out, he just told her not to be rude like that. Is that called taking care of me? I studied hard through the years and was admitted to a key university. But because she needed a servant to wait on her, she arranged for me to go to a third-rate university. While I was cleaning her dormitory for her, she was serving Brother Lucas comfortably in a hotel. After having an abortion and being weak, she still ordered me around. Is that called taking care of me? I'll never forget the taste of the foot-washing water. I'll never forget the humiliation of a man either. The smile on my father's face gradually froze. He whispered, "You can't be ungrateful. Look at you now, dressed in a suit." It's all thanks to the help of the Isabella family. I didn't say a word. Those who have different paths can't plan together. My father had been loyal to the Isabella family for decades. He would be happy even if the Isabella family just threw him a bone. But I'm different. I've endured so much hardship and been bullied so much. No one can boss me around anymore. Today I brought him here to let him witness the downfall of the Isabella family with his own eyes and to see me ascend to the top above everyone else. When the car arrived at the entrance of the Isabella group, Isabella and Lucas had already been waiting there. As soon as my father saw Isabella, he hurried and humbly went up to her. Isabella, you've grown so big. Isabella looked at him with disgust. Uncle, who are you? Why do you know me? I'm your Uncle James. President Isabella came to see me 5 years ago and showed me your photo. I recognized you at a glance. Isabella suddenly realized and sneered, Uncle James, you've really taught your son well. My father hadn't sensed her sarcasm yet. He said ingratiatingly, it's all thanks to your care and that of President Isabella. Isabella looked at me arrogantly and suddenly said to my father, I'm thirsty. Go and buy me a bottle of water. All right, Uncle will go right away. I watched my father humbly run to buy water for Isabella, and she sneered at me. See, your father is better at being a servant than you are. I stood at the entrance patiently waiting for my father to come back. He was panting from running and brought a bottle of mineral water for Isabella. When he returned, Isabella took the mineral water and threw it directly on the ground, saying, I want ice-cold water. My father was startled and quickly said, then I'll buy you another one. No need, I don't want to drink it now. Isabella looked at me provocatively and then walked directly into the company's entrance. My father came back to me at a loss. He smiled bitterly and said, the girl has a bad temper. Remember to buy her one later. I said softly, let's go. The meeting is starting. I'll allow you to sit in on it. At the shareholders meeting, all 12 shareholders were present. Only the position of the chairman at the end of the table was empty. Isabella sat in her chair, chewing gum, and asked casually, where's my father? I picked up the documents and said into the microphone, today is the third quarterly meeting of this year. Miss Isabella didn't attend the previous 2 meetings. So I'll briefly recap the general situations of the previous 2 times. She still had that cynical attitude and sneered. The first time I went abroad to find Brother Lucas, and the second time was when Brother Lucas had a holiday and came back to see me. All the shareholders looked gloomy. This woman really laid her cards on the table and stopped pretending. I cleared my throat and said, in the first quarter, I led the company to enter the internet industry and signed contracts with 85 bloggers and influencers. Taking advantage of the New Year's promotions, we made a profit of 40 million. In the second quarter, to cut costs, we created our own exclusive influencers and crafted blockbuster marketing copy, which greatly reduced the marketing costs and made a profit of 70 million. Preparing for the mid-year big promotion, suddenly, Isabella raised her hand and interrupted me. All right, you don't need to brag about your abilities in front of me. These are what you're supposed to do anyway. I'm telling you, Brother Lucas can do all the work you've done, and he can do it even better. Her words made my father in the corner suddenly change his expression. He was full of worry, afraid that I would lose the protection of the Isabella family. Lucas smiled and said, William, you've paved the way very well. When I take over your position, I'll take the company to a new level. Thank you for creating such a good situation. I glanced at him. Yes, such a good start was all created by me over the years. I helped the Isabella family achieve wealth and prosperity, but the father and daughter of the Isabella family just regarded me as a dog. Isabella said gently, Brother Lucas, you don't need to thank him. The company's fortune is on the rise now. When you take over, you can play a trump card right away. Lucas smiled and said, silly girl, no matter how the company is doing, I'll stay with you through thick and thin. We can share joys and endure hardships together. Hearing Lucas say that, I felt relieved. I cleared my throat and continued. In the third quarter, more than half of the leases of the company's warehouses expired and couldn't be renewed. Additionally, 5 banks demanded to recall their loans in advance. The chairman has fled abroad. The theme of today's shareholders meeting is to apply for the company's dissolution. Isabella was stunned. The smile on her face went from frozen to disappearing and then turned pale. I sighed and said, Miss Isabella, fortunately, you came today. Your father has fled the country. There are debt collectors outside the company. They said that if you don't pay back the money today, one finger of yours will be worth 100,000. Thanks to Brother Lucas staying with you through thick and thin. Your family owes them 4 million. With both of you counting your fingers and toes, it'll just be enough to pay it off. Isabella completely lost her arrogant look. Just now, she grabbed my clothes, and her voice was shaking with excitement as she said, how on earth did you handle things? Our family's company was making profits before. Why is it suddenly going bankrupt? Tell me. I looked at her devastated expression and smiled. I've been working diligently for your family's business all along, but you're right, I'm incompetent. It's better to let Brother Lucas take this position. Yes, it's all business. In the first quarter, we had a pleasant cooperation with those bloggers and influencers. In the second quarter, I discovered that Isabella's father had become demented, so I proposed a plan to create our own influencers and save marketing costs. I founded a new company and established business cooperation with the Isabella Group, telling him that it was an enterprise prepared for Isabella. Isabella's father was selfish. He was quite willing to take the shareholders' money and put it into his own pocket in the name of cooperation. However, Isabella was only focused on having fun and neglecting her duties. She was too lazy to read the documents given to her by the company each time and just signed them to get the money. She had already handed the company over to me herself. During the last period when Isabella's father, there was still sanity. He had always thought that he was paving the way for his daughter and was thinking about kicking me out in the second quarter. On the surface, I was working, but behind the scenes, I was frantically signing up influencers. However, all the influencers I signed were young men who just knew how to do the HSO dance, a kind of trendy dance move. But our company sells light luxury goods. I also signed contracts with these young men who didn't know the law, and they could only get an extremely small share of the dividends. Entering the third quarter, Isabella's father had completely lost his former sanity. Under my operation, the Isabella Group began to invest marketing expenses crazily into the new company, but got nothing in return. On top of that, they increased production and piled up debts. Logically speaking, what I did surely couldn't be hidden from the other shareholders, but they were on my side. To achieve great things, one must learn to share benefits. After years of cooperation, the shareholders were well aware of the selfishness and incompetence of the father and daughter of the Isabella family. After seeing the secret operations of Isabella's father, this time they were even more firmly on my side. I couldn't build this company alone. I had the support of the other 11 shareholders, except Isabella, behind me. The powerless Isabella could only look at Lucas for help, and Lucas frantically grabbed my documents and started flipping through them. He quickly said, "Isabella, don't worry. There is still a large number of goods in the warehouse that haven't been sold. Moreover, your family has decades-old production lines and a customer base. These are all our assets. As long as we liquidate these things, and according to the share proportions of you and your father, not only can we pay off the debts, but you can also be worth tens of millions." Hearing this, Isabella immediately breathed a sigh of relief. I nodded and said, "Yes, there will indeed be a new company coming." To discuss the acquisition of our business today, Isabella got angry and shouted at me, "You useless piece of trash. Hurry up and make tea to welcome the boss of that company." Following Isabella's order, I made a cup of tea and placed it on the chairman's seat. Then I sat in my chair and took a sip of the tea. Isabella looked at me in astonishment. "You useless thing, what are you drinking tea for?" I said. "Next, let's talk about the acquisition of your family's business." Isabella was first dumbfounded but soon came to her senses. She gritted her teeth and said, "Well, so you've already gone to work for someone else like a dog and even come to negotiate the company's acquisition on their behalf. Servants will always be servants after all." Isabella sat back in her chair and sneered. "What price is your new master offering?" I said, "I've already had people take inventory of the things in the warehouse. The production lines, the remaining warehouse leases, and the stable customer list are worth approximately 240 million in total." Hearing this, Lucas excitedly said to Isabella, "Baby, sell all these, pay off the debts, and you'll get at least 100 million. Isabella nodded and said to me, "I don't want to argue with you, you're not even qualified to negotiate with me. Ask your master to pay the money now. Besides, I have one additional condition." I asked, "What's the condition?" She said coldly, "I want your new master to put it in black and white in the contract, that you will never be allowed to serve as the general manager." I was stunned for a moment and then said honestly, "I'm not the general manager in the company anyway." I was telling the truth. I'm the chairman of the new company, and I'm planning to let my secretary take the position of the general manager. Hearing that I wasn't the general manager, Isabella suddenly burst into wild laughter. "William, if I'm having a hard time, you're also down and out, you incompetent servant. Even if you lose the position of the general manager, you still have to quickly grovel to your new master. You're really disgusting." I looked at her calmly and asked, "Have you laughed enough?" She waved her hand. "You're not worthy of my laughter anymore. 240 million, bring the contract and let's sign it." All the shareholders present looked meaningfully at Isabella. She wondered, "What are you all doing? Come over and study the contract." I asked her, "Did I say I would offer 240 million? She was stunned. I said, "Considering the depreciation of the production lines and the out-of-season goods, our company is willing to offer 40 million. Isabella slapped the table and cursed angrily. "Is there anyone who bargains like you? Fine, I won't sell it. There are plenty of companies that want to buy it. I don't lack just your company." She was so angry that she stood up and was about to leave. Lucas also took her hand and said to me, "William, I finally understood. The company behind you has no intention of buying it all. You're so furious now that you deliberately come to bully Isabella. I smiled and said, so what? He said, every dog has its day. When we make a comeback, I'll make you pay 100 times for all the humiliation you've inflicted on Isabella today. I'll deal with those creditors. The Isabella family is like a lean camel. It's bigger than a horse. He hugged Isabella's waist, gave me a fierce glare, and was about to take her away. I said coldly, stop, this is a shareholders meeting. Whether to sell to our company or not is not up to you to decide, but up to the shareholders to vote. Isabella sneered. Do you think everyone will agree under such conditions? I said, shareholders who agree to sell, please raise your hands. All the shareholders present raised their hands one after another. Isabella's face grew paler and paler, and Lucas also almost lost his balance, shocked by the scene in front of him. For major company affairs, the number of shareholders voting in favor needs to exceed 2/3 for it to be approved. And at this moment, it was 11-1. I smiled and said, approved. Let's sign the contract. E-contract. Are you guys crazy? You're selling something worth $240 million for just $40 million. Isabella couldn't hold her temper any longer and started making a scene in the meeting room like a shrew. Of course, the shareholders would agree. The new company was created by us, after all, and they had all arranged their confidants or relatives in the new company. Acquiring the Isabella Group was like moving money from one pocket to another, except that we still had to pay taxes. This was just a process of our gradually encroaching on the Isabella family to repay them for what they had done to us over the years. Isabella cursed loudly. You bastards, you ungrateful wretches. My father is the largest shareholder, and he has the right of veto. Although she was stupid, Lucas had clearly seen the current situation. He stopped backing Isabella up and was sweating profusely. Instead, I said, your father has fled abroad and has been listed as a discredited person by several institutions. Do you think he can still come back to vote? The shareholders have the right to dispose of the company in order to cut losses in time. I can vote on behalf of my father. The combined shares of my father and I are more than anyone else's. Do you have a power of attorney? Your father has run away, not died. Why should you inherit his shares? Isabella looked ashen at this moment. The door of the meeting room was suddenly pushed open. Several burly men walked into the meeting room. They had fierce looks on their faces and tattoos on their bodies, looking like people not to be trifled with. These people were exactly the creditors of the Isabella family. Isabella's father had chosen private lending in order to avoid the shareholders back then. His greed finally became the last straw that broke the back of the Isabella family. I said, Miss Isabella, after you get the money today, you'll just be able to pay off what you owe to the bank. But I'm afraid you can't afford the $4 million owed to these underworld brothers. A tattooed man suddenly laughed loudly. She can afford it. We have plenty of ways to make her earn $4 million. I asked, is it the kind of means that can make a person appear in every corner of the world at the same time? The burly man sneered. That's the last resort. Isabella swallowed hard and asked Lucas, what are they talking about? How can a person possibly appear in every corner of the world at the same time? Lucas's face grew uglier and uglier. Ivik began to tremble and finally said, don't worry, let them pay back these tough guys first. As for the bank, we can just delay it until your father comes back. I took out the contract that I had prepared long ago and placed it on the table. Isabella looked at the document tremblingly. When she saw it clearly, she suddenly raised her head and looked at me. William, I smiled and said, let me introduce myself. Starting from today, I'm the boss of the Isabella Group, and you are just a dog by my side. My father in the corner was completely dumbfounded. Isabella popped down and knelt on the ground directly. Even if she was stupid, she had already understood her situation. By now, she grasped the corner of my clothes and pleaded, President William, I'm sorry. It was all my fault. For the sake of my family's kindness in raising you, please forgive me, I sneered. How dare you mention the kindness of raising me, Isabella? Don't you know in your heart how your family has treated me over the years? Anyway, I'm your fiancé. The day before yesterday, you were still having a wild time with this man in my bridal chamber. Are you worthy of mentioning the word fiancé? Lucas swallowed hard and said to Isabella, sign it. Let her not beg him with this money. I have a way to take you abroad and continue to live the life of a rich lady. I smiled. Up to this point, Lucas was still thinking about Isabella's money. All the shareholders signed one after another. I made a phone call to my secretary and said softly, transfer the money. Isabella breathed a sigh of relief and said to those tattooed men, I'll pay you back the money right away. Just wait a moment. I have the authority and password for my father's card. Lucas hugged her shoulders and turned to me, saying, remember, you'll pay 100 times for this. Isabella lost the pleading attitude she had just shown towards me. She gritted her teeth and cursed angrily, William, you heartless beast. Brother Lucas is far more talented than you. We will surely make a comeback abroad and come back to make you lose everything. I touched my chin and suddenly said, oh no. Isabella was stunned for a moment. What's wrong? I patted my forehead and said, I was really careless. I forgot to ask the finance department to repay the money on your father's card in the past 3 months, and it has been frozen by the bank. But don't worry, once the money arrives in the account, it will probably be deducted by the bank to pay off the debts immediately. Speaking of this, I smiled. So don't worry, you won't owe the bank any money. Isabella couldn't even stand steadily and swayed on the spot. The tattooed man frowned tightly. Miss Isabella, so you can't pay us the $4 million you owe us, right? Isabella opened her mouth but couldn't say a word. On the contrary, Lucas, seeing that Isabella was doomed, turned around and was about to leave. Isabella quickly grabbed his arm and said anxiously, Brother Lucas, where are you going? I don't want to be dragged down by you even if you die. Lucas shook off her hand. From today on, we'll completely break off our relationship. You clearly said just now that you were willing to share joys and sorrows with me. Now it's not a matter of hardship. It's a matter of losing our lives. Even husband and wife part ways in the face of disaster, let alone you and me. Isabella seemed to have lost all her strength and sat limply on the ground. I smiled and said, Lucas, you can't leave either. He stopped in his tracks and said coldly, William, don't try to scare me. To put it bluntly, so what if I slept with your fiancée? I'm neither an employee of your company nor in debt. I can come and go as I please. I looked at Lucas's arrogant face and smiled. I indeed have no accounts to settle with you. But anyway, Isabella was once my fiancée. There are a few accounts that I can help her settle. He asked, what accounts? 3 years ago, she gave you a Porsche 911. Even the second-hand price can still sell for $1 million now. And this watch you're wearing, I guess it was also given to you by her, right? There's no way you could afford it yourself. Even this high-end Armani suit you're wearing. As a student who went abroad on public funds, could you afford a haute couture suit? Isabella, who had been downhearted just now, suddenly raised her head, and a glimmer of hope burst out in her eyes. She grabbed Lucas's hand and said excitedly, yes, you can't leave. Return all the things I gave you and all the transfers I made to you. Return them all. Lucas said angrily, there's no reason to take back things that have been given away. I've loved you for so many years in vain and given you so many benefits. Now you'd rather watch me die than return the things to me. Isabella stood up and reached out to grab Lucas's face, cursing angrily. I'll fight you. Return the things right away. The two people who had been affectionate just now were now fighting with each other. If outsiders saw this scene, who would believe that this was a shareholders' meeting? It was just like a fight in a vegetable market. I sat in the position of the chairman, watching the two of them scuffle, and couldn't help laughing. Lucas was really hitting Isabella with all his might. He clenched his fists and kept pounding on Isabella's face. But how could Isabella give up this last straw to save her life? Even though her nose was bleeding, she still held on to Lucas tightly. Seeing that she was about to lose the fight, Isabella quickly said to those tattooed men, Big brothers, please help me. If I sue this guy, I'm sure I can get the money back and pay you back. These men thought for a moment and finally grabbed Lucas by the neck and lifted him up as if he were a little chicken. If they could get the money back through legal channels, they naturally didn't want to waste more effort. Lucas was furious. He spat a thick loogie on Isabella's face and cursed loudly. I've been playing around with you for so many years, and now you want everything back. All these years have been wasted on you. What bad luck. How disgusting. The one who should feel unlucky and disgusted is me. I got pregnant and had an abortion for you. I even wanted to hand over the family business to you. In the end, you're the one with real wolfish ambitions. I touched my chin and watched the angry Isabella. It was really interesting. She would never call him Brother Lucas anymore. Isabella managed to pay off the money after all. One can imagine how much she had invested in Lucas over the years. The former lovers were now facing each other in court. Finally, the court ruled that Lucas should return all the property. Cars and items could help Isabella pay off about $2 million in debts. By investigating the transfer records, she found that she had transferred $2.8 million in cash to Lucas. The problem was that after Lucas hooked up with a rich woman, he spent money extravagantly and had already used it all up. Now, even though the court ordered him to pay back the money, he couldn't afford it. At the last moment, Isabella completely inherited her father's selfishness. She sold the debt of $2.6 million to those tattooed men. Of course, these creditors agreed to accept this deal of making an easy $600,000. They always had ways to get the money back after obtaining the production lines, customer base, and goods of the Isabella Group. I immediately promoted and marketed them, converted the goods into cash, terminated the contracts with those young men who did the H-show dance, and signed contracts with bloggers and influencers whose fan groups were suitable for the light luxury goods we had. We already had a perfect business plan, and coupled with the customer base of the Isabella Group, it didn't take long for the new company to get on the right track. Isabella's father had already died of illness abroad and couldn't come back. When I saw Isabella again, I was sitting in the car while she was standing on the street. Once a noble young lady, she was now truly a streetwalker. She was standing on the roadside, wearing vulgar clothes, holding a cigarette in her hand, and with heavy makeup on her face, yet it couldn't hide her increasingly festering skin. I asked the driver to stop the car and waved to her. She didn't see clearly who it was and quickly ran towards the car. As soon as she got in the car, I smelled the cheap cosmetics on her body. It was pungent and unpleasant. "Isabella," she called out, "boss," and then recognized me. She opened her mouth wide in shock. I said, "Why are you alone? Where's Lucas?" "I don't know." She shook her head and said, "We haven't seen each other since the court's judgment." "Was this job suits you well now?" She grasped the corner of her skirt and forced a smile. At this moment, it seemed that she was gradually merging with her in my childhood memories. Isabella said in a low voice, "President William, I'm really having a hard time. It was all my fault back then. As long as you can calm down, I'll even count out to you. Please, could you take me in?" I said, "Do you remember that once at the beginning of the spring semester, I wore new clothes? You insisted that I get down on the ground and let you ride me like a horse in front of the whole class, and my clothes were all worn out." She burst into tears and said, "President William, I'm sorry. That time when I got home, it was your mother who sewed my clothes stitch by stitch. Both you and your father are heartless people. After your father's business grew big, he immediately dumped your mother. Your mother was so kind to you, but for the sake of staying with your wealthy father, you didn't even agree to let her see you before she died." Isabella lowered her head and didn't say a word. I sighed and said she was the only person in the Isabella family who had ever given me warmth. If you two hadn't abandoned her, I would have repaid her kindness and wouldn't have targeted the Isabella family. Kindness is kindness, and grudges are grudges. Although the Isabella family is gone, I have to be worthy of your mother. Come to the company to report for duty tomorrow. I'll give you a position with a monthly salary of over 10,000. I won't let her child starve on the street." Isabella opened her eyes wide and quickly said, "What position?" The next day, there was an important old customer coming to discuss business. I picked him up in the Maybach. When we arrived at the company and the door opened, Isabella was standing at the entrance, wearing a welcome banner, and bowed to us respectfully. "Good morning, President William." The customer took a look at Isabella and said curiously, "This girl looks a bit familiar, but I can't remember who she is." For a moment, I glanced at Isabella and couldn't help laughing. She's just a lackey. She doesn't deserve to have her name remembered.